These are some smaller games from August that you may have overlooked. I'll give you the pros and the cons for each of them, but ultimately, they're all worth checking out. Today in gameranx, we're going to bring you 5 smaller yet awesome games of August 2017. Starting off at number 5, we have Observer, which is a cyberpunk horror game from the team that brought you Layers of Fear. Observer takes place in the year 2084 in a world ravaged by digital plague and war. You play as Dan Lazarski, who's played by Rutger Hauer. Lazarski is an observer, a new kind of detective that has the ability to hack into minds of suspects, whether they're alive or dead. The world in Observer is pretty fucking awesome. It looks really cool, and it's very Blade Runner. Like, it looks like it's stuck in the 80s, but like the 80s version of the future. Now moving on to the overall gameplay experience, let me just start off by saying that this isn't a me game. This type of game isn't something that I'd usually play. So personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Observer, but I can totally appreciate it for what it is, and I know that if you're into games like Layers of Fear, you'll totally be into this. This is 100% a detective game, so you'll spend a lot of time setting up and investigating crime scenes and talking to civilians, which is actually fine. It's a lot of fun. What really throws me off is when you jack into someone's head. It's supposed to be you having access to their thoughts, alive or dead, and this is where the horror part of the game comes in, I guess. When you're in someone's head, it's pretty creepy. There's a lot of stuff flashing on the screen. I thought I was honestly gonna have a seizure, and it's really more of like a nightmare than actually reading someone's thoughts. I never understood what I actually learned from it that would help my investigation. It just seemed a little all over the place, but I'm also an idiot, so that could just be something that went right over my head. There's also a very out of place cat and mouse thing with this weird monster that just seems to be there, and it really breaks the immersion, and it just doesn't make sense being there. I don't know, I may have missed something while playing this game, but like I said, while this isn't an Andrew game, I totally get what they're trying to do, and I think the audience that they're appealing to would really enjoy this game. Moving on to number 4, we have Phantom Trigger. Let me just start off by saying that yes, this game has obvious similarities to Hyper Light Drifter. Look-wise and combat-wise, it is similar, yes, but I wouldn't be so quick to classify it as a Hyper Light Drifter clone, because it isn't. It's its own thing, and it's actually a blast to play. Phantom Trigger starts off with a playable character, Stan, standing in his kitchen talking to his wife before he starts to feel unwell and falls to the floor and goes unconscious. After a visit to the doctor, you learn that you're dying and you undergo an experimental treatment. This treatment has him going in and out of consciousness, which causes him to go back and forth between real life and another world or dimension where he's a legendary hero or warrior. The game flip-flops back and forth between both of Stan's worlds, kind of like an Assassin's Creed with the Animus, honestly. And just like with Assassin's Creed, during the real-life segments, that's where you get your narrative. When you're in the other world, it's mostly combat and puzzle solving. And the combat here is a blast. Throughout the opening minutes of the game, you'll get 3 weapons, a sword, a whip, and 2 Hellboy-looking fists, and each one is tied to a different button. And while the combat may seem simple at first glance, it really isn't. As the game goes on, you really have to start learning and using all the combos that you unlock by leveling up. Because the screen can get flooded with enemies really quick, and they can surprisingly take you down, like almost instantly. So learning how to coordinate your attacks is something you're gonna want to pick up quick. The puzzles aren't anything to rave about, they aren't complicated at all, but they are fun. It's like playing Simon. Something will light up with a certain color in a certain order, and you have to hit them in that order with whatever weapon matches the color of whatever lit up. Nice and simple. I gotta say, this game really took me by surprise. I didn't expect it to be as difficult as it was. I died a lot, and I mean a lot. Also, the strong narrative wasn't something I was expecting. I was always dying to learn more about Stan and see what happened next in the story. The colorful pixelated graphics are also really nice to look at, and they do a great job of adding to the look of this other world or dimension where you'll be spending most of your time. It's a very satisfying game and very challenging. And next up at number 3, we have West of Loathing, which is a comedy adventure that takes place in the Wild West. Sort of. This isn't necessarily a sequel, but more of a follow-up to the web-based game Kingdom of Loathing. First thing you're going to notice about this game is the way it looks. It has black and white stick-figure doodle graphics. The way it looks definitely sets you up for the adventure you're about to go on. This game is just as goofy as its graphics, which is a good thing, because this game is hysterical. It's also a blast to play. There's no way you can play this game and not smile. You can ask Jake. When I was playing this at the office, I was non-stop laughing at the dialogue and different characters. Its humor isn't the only good part of the game either. The gameplay is actually quite enjoyable. At the start of the game, you pick from one of 3 classes: Cowpuncher, Beanslinger, or snake oiler, which is their version of fighter, wizard, and rogue. After picking your class, you leave your family's farm, then you head out west to find fame and fortune. Once you leave home, you'll be running around town taking on quests that different townsfolk have to offer, which could range from fighting bandits, finding missing beer mugs, or finding broken leg pills for someone whose leg just broke out of nowhere. The combat here is turn-based and it's really quite simple, and it's definitely the game's weakest link, but it isn't weak enough to ruin the game for me. I always found myself racing through the combat just so I can get back to meeting the next colorful character and running around the map looking for random items, experiencing the next joke. At its core, it's a simple turn-based adventure game, but West of Loathing is much more than that. This game hits you with joke after joke, and it smacks you in the face with its personality, and its humor and writing is something that's going to keep me and a ton of other players invested in this game for hours. This is definitely the game you bug your friends to play, just so you have someone to laugh along with. P.S. Here's a quick pro tip. When you start the game, make sure to read all the books on your bookshelf in your bedroom. You unlock something really great, and it's my favorite part of the game so far. I mean, just look at this. Trust me, you won't regret it. And now moving on to number 2. You all remember Nidhogg, right? The 1v1 fencing game that took the world by storm? Well, we just got Nidhogg 2, the gross looking sequel. Yeah, I said that right. I said gross. Look at these little gross dudes, and the sounds they make are gross too. It's just all so gross. It's still the same core gameplay, which is good because the first game got it down perfect. Kill the opponent in front of you, try to go as far as you can before they respawn, kill them again, rinse, repeat. It's so simple, but its simplicity is what makes it so perfect. The controls are pretty simple too. They're a little clunky, but I'm pretty sure that's on purpose because they work and it's a lot of fun. But even with it being fun, it does have its downfalls. For one, the single player arcade mode is very quick. You can get through it within like 20 or 30 minutes. And the AI is so weird. It's either really on point to the point where they're annoyingly good, or so stupid where they just stand there and wait for you to respawn and don't even attempt to run forward. And yeah, I know no one's picking up Nidhogg 2 for a single player experience. The game is best experienced when playing with someone else. Unfortunately, the game makes that kind of hard. There is local multiplayer that works well and good, and you obviously just need another person there to play with it. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't really have people lining up to play games with me. So I have to rely on the multiplayer. But this game can suffer from some really bad lag and some pretty bad matchmaking. The lag gets so bad that the game is essentially just running in slow motion. And this is a huge bummer because I just want to run around with strangers and have them stab me repeatedly. But the laggy multiplayer aside, I'm still having a blast with this game, even if I am mostly playing it alone. The new weapon system does add a little bit more strategy to it. Once you start understanding the weapon cycle, you can plan slightly ahead and make things feel a little bit more fresh. It's just fun, straight up fun. Finally, at number 1, we have Subsurface Circular, which is the newest game from Mike Bithell, the mind behind Thomas Was Alone and Volume. It's a short text-based game that can be finished in one sitting, and the whole game takes place in one location. This game takes place in a not-so-far-off future where robots are called techs, and they take on a lot of jobs that humans once did. You play as a tech who's a detective, working for the city, and your beat is the city's subway line. At the beginning of the game, you agree to take on a case from another tech, even though it goes against your protocols, and your investigation is done by talking to the different techs that ride the train, with techs getting on and off at each stop. This is a text-based game, so that's all you're doing, but in classic Mike Bithell fashion, all the dialogue is perfect. Looks-wise, the game looks pretty flat and minimalistic, which was obviously done purposefully, and it's the writing that really makes all of these techs stand out as separate individuals with their own personalities. Some coming off as very robot-like, others coming off as very human. There are some puzzles that you'll have to take part in as well, and seeing that this is a text-based game, these puzzles were really fresh. Just coming off of Hellblade and Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, these puzzles were pretty refreshing, and they never got repetitive or boring. And I love that they made me think and actually pay attention. The story is really great too, and the ending is one of my favorite video game endings of this year. For $5, this game is a steal. You can finish it in 1 to 2 sittings, so you don't have to commit too much time to it, and it's just a fresh experience. This is actually the first game in a series of shorter, cheaper games that Mike Bithell plans on releasing, and if they're all on the same level as this one, we're all in for a treat. This is definitely one of my favorite video game experiences of the year so far, and I can't recommend it enough. And those are 5 smaller yet awesome games that we played in August 2017. But we want to hear from you guys. So meet us down in the comments and let us know what you think. As I'm sure you already know, hitting that like button really helps us out, and if you're new here, subscribing is a good idea because we put out videos like this every single day. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.